Let's say 6-7 years ago, people would ask me, what's your favorite place to play, you know? And I will always say Tokyo, New York, Berlin, London. And Paris, even though I love my town, I couldn't say it was my favorite place to play because it wasn't.
People were always going away to Berlin or to Amsterdam or to Barcelona to party.
It took almost 6 years for people to really build something in Paris because every time the police shut down the place before.
They were banning all type of electronic music events, sending police, riot police, tear gas, everything.
The scene grew very progressively for years, and suddenly the mass arrived.
All the journalists, all the media are coming to Paris to grab that feeling.
The crowd is just into it, but 100% into it. For techno, or for deep house, or for house, or for whatever, you have a big crowd involved.
There is a real movement of renewing in France. It's fantastic to see how electronic music has found new ways, new forms.
If the music has lost something along the way of being reborn somehow, it's maybe a bit of originality.
Maybe it grew a little bit too fast at some point, and there was too many clubs doing the exact same kind of artist. It became maybe a little bit too safe.
Now you got more promoters than DJs. That's what's happening. It's an industry now.
Historically, Paris has been, in terms of modern music, it's been a home to jazz.
The punk scene was very big. Even before that, rock and roll in the 50s. And jazz, of course, how can I forget jazz?
Then you have all the different types of music that's come from Africa via the US and then back to France. So that's why funk, soul, disco was really strong in France as well.
It's funny because when journalists are talking about Paris, they said, now Paris is alive. But it was not so dead before.
In the 90s, I can remember the very unique energy that was going on in the clubs where I used to go and listen to Laurent Garnier when he was playing, and he would play everything from hip-hop to house. But at the time for us, house was the same thing, like Tribe Called Quest and Marshall Jefferson were the same music. We didn't really think, this is house music, this is hip-hop, this is blah, blah, blah. We just like this new music coming in at once, so it was really exciting. All the raves and the small clubs developing was very inspiring.
The electronic scene in Paris has been exploding in the past 5 years. Up to the past years, we had more mainstream artists getting success. The main point of the French scene is that it lives and it grows around niche musics or underground styles.
Paris had a lot of ups and downs, but music-wise, underground music has always been very, very important over here.
There's a lot of French people that make a music that is strongly influenced by their African roots.
African music and Brazilian music and Jamaican music as well. So all this kind of black music was very strong in our roots, and we all grew up with all these kinds of different styles of music.
Since the very beginning of house with Saint-Germain and all his groups, you can hear African music, jazz, electronic, industrial, a mix of different styles, and I like this. That's what I love about house and techno. It's the variety of influences, not just one thing.
What makes France special is a lot linked to free parties. Because we were in the end of 90s, beginning of the year 2000, one of the biggest countries in Europe with the most free parties. At one moment we had these giant technivals. You were walking around for kilometers in the middle of booming sound systems and people going crazy all around. So it really created the specifics of our scene.
In 1998, there was the first Techno Parade. My godmother, she brought me to the Techno Parade, and I never heard this music before, and I just got soaked into it. I started to buy records by my own, and it never stopped.
We are at Place de la Nation, which was the arrival point of the first Techno Parade in '98. You had a big stage there, and you had 500,000 people dancing. It was crazy.
You have to understand, we were crossing such a hard time with the government back then.
Police forces in 1995 had the instructions from the government to stop any electronic music event, but any.
We organized the French Techno Parade thanks to Jacques Lang, thanks to a lot of people, which became quite politically involved.
The promoters gathered in '96. They created Technopole to start discussions with the government and explain that there is a culture, there is an economic market, there are artists, and that we need recognition.
My role concerning music consisted to encourage the new form, the new style, especially electronic music.
Jacques Lang is one of the first guys who really put the finger on there is something to do for our generation about music.
We create with Technopole, the first Techno Parade.
It was a magical day. Being able to go in the streets, attracting 200,000 people, to cross Paris, to go on the Bastille, which means a lot to us. Ending up Place de la Nation with this amount of people dancing to techno music. It was a real victory. And on top of that, being broadcasted on TV live. I mean, this is crazy.
10 years ago, it was a very low moment, low time for the Paris house and techno scene. There was not much going on. It took 6 years to have what's happening now, which is kind of new generation of big clubs, festivals, warehouse parties, which had totally disappeared for many, many years.
There was a lot of inspiration, of course, from Paris to what was happening in Berlin, but also in other big cities, Barcelona, Amsterdam.
Let's say 5-6 years ago, when there was not so much happening in Paris, a lot of promoters who are now doing big things in Paris would get inspired taking low-cost flight.
In the 2000s, there was this EasyJet generation who just took a plane, went to party and came back at the airport 24 hours. And these are the guys who are creating the scene today.
My ex-job, I was business engineer. With the money I was earning, I was going every weekend in other countries. I was going in Berlin, in London, in Amsterdam.
So they would go there, hear amazing new DJs who were not necessarily playing in Paris at that time, and be inspired by the best scenes, which maybe in 2005 was Berlin, and that inspired them to create what's happening here now. I'm talking about the new generation of promoters, for sure. And also some clubbers, who didn't wait for something here and they went there. So when it's finally happened here, they were ready. They knew what kind of sound they wanted, they knew what kind of DJs they wanted to hear, they knew what a good club should be.
In Paris, but since few years, there is amazing energy, a lot of parties, a lot of new crews who make not just parties, but also music, labels.
We have a lot of clubs, a lot of promoters, a lot of people. I think we are living in a pretty amazing period.
I was in New York in '93. It was the peak for house, at least. I would say Berlin 10 years ago was also very the important time. And definitely I can recognize it's Paris' turn.
The main thing is kind of the opposite of what French touch was, which was a very polite music. Now it's industrial techno and industrial drum and bass and the warehouse sound, you know, that it has to sound large.
There is a lot of international DJ coming, and I think what they enjoyed is the crowd.
I think the crowd is definitely the best crowd in the world right now.
They're enjoying parties, partying a lot, knowing more and more about music, about quality music.
They have the knowledge. If they're curious, if a new DJ comes, they're gonna listen to some of his mixes online.
Usually they're 20 years old. They just discovered it, but most of them have really good taste in music.
And also they have the energy of the newbies, you know, beginners. They've been doing this for 2 years or 3 years, and they have so much energy.
They move and they're big groups of people. They're going to rave and they go from the beginning to the end.
The reason it's happening now, it's a new generation who arrives and who are very interested into this music. Also a new generation of promoters.
Maybe it's an awakening, I don't know exactly, but it's this kind of mixture of, you know, like mentality of like embracing everybody music.
Politics, realizing that nightlife is important in the city, and instead of trying to stop everything, they're actually letting it happen.
Legally, you couldn't set up a big festival. You had political oppositions to opening clubs. So now that all this is settled in Paris, and it's starting to be settled all around France, we have this kind of feeling of what we lived maybe in the early 90s, where just people were going out, they wanted to have fun, they didn't want to have any boundaries.
Maybe drugs, good drugs at some point. It's several factors together, and it just happened like this.
Actually, when many clubs died, the aim was trying to find a place where we can be as chill as we want, as free as we want, finding like weird places, caves, rooftop, like apartments, loft, pools, I don't know, I don't care. Nobody cares, they wanted to do something.
You'd suddenly see progressively new parties springing up in different parts of the city, and sometimes outside of the city, outside of the periphery, to places where people would never go before.
Schedules from like 12 in the afternoon till 12 in the next afternoon, or 12 midnight till 12, like 12 hours party, 16 hours, 20, 24 hours party.
You have one party called 75021.
6B is a place outside Paris, very close to Paris. It's like a building for artists. Sonotown is organizing like super cool parties on Sunday afternoon there.
75021 Sonotown. They operate in legal and underground venues.
We call it lieu atypique in French. It's not warehouse, but it's
alternative place.
Alternative place.
A place we can be free to doing like this kind of party.
I think what they wanted to bring back is a mix between this underground free party culture, cheaper prices at the entrance, cheaper prices for the drinks, and a lot of local DJs also.
Donc le concept de 75021, à la base, c'était de rassembler les acteurs parisiens et français autour de la musique électronique, donc des labels, des artistes, des médias, voilà, différents. Ça, c'était la première idée.
They call it collectif, where you have a video artist, you have a musician, you have a DJ, you have somebody who knows how to count. This new techno scene is really connecting Paris to the suburbs.
Il n'y a pas vraiment de politique précise. Il y avait vraiment l'idée de faire découvrir au public des artistes que les gens connaissaient pas tellement. Prendre des risques qui dans un vrai club ramènerait peut-être même pas un quart des gens ou un dixième des gens qui sont là aujourd'hui. Voilà.
Mais on aimerait bien avoir Laurent Garnier. Hein.
You have a stage, like a big garden if you want. You have like super sound, super DJs.
The same DJs that are actually playing on, in big clubs abroad, they come down to play here because it's such a brilliant place to play and the vibe's so good.
This party at 6B is one of the top parties in Paris.
think being in Paris, at least for me, is a great source of inspiration, and it has always been just the architecture, the mix of culture, going from one place of the city to the other.
I love the architecture. I love to walk on the streets. It's lovely.
I get a rush from coming home all the time, and I couldn't really live somewhere else. I tried somehow, but I could not make it. Personally, I have a really strong connection to the city.
You take it for granted when you live here all the time, but sometimes you walk around and you're like, yeah, it's not bad.
It's a beautiful city.
Well, it's really beautiful. People are so nice and so, polite. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a tough city, It's not as glamorous as people would think it is. There's something always on the edge, Parisians can be a bit grumpy, or even when it's perfect, there's always going to be something criticizing about. And see, I'm criticizing my city right now.
People in Paris have always been saying that it was better elsewhere. In New York, because the first generation of French Dutch went there and lived the American dream. Then, of course, Berlin has always been the thing.
Berlin has all these warehouses and kind of underground places, whereas Paris is a much smaller city, so the clubs are smaller.
The venue that influenced me the most originally was Rex Club.
The Rex was one of the main clubs in Paris. We didn't have so many clubs, proper club for electronic music.
For a lot of people, of my generation, it was a place where they discovered house and techno.
What's cool about Rex Club is that it was my first experience, so I never saw that before.
I remember seeing Dave Clark or Laurent Garnier and be staring at the DJ booth for hours and hours, just watching what they do and how people dance. It was very new. I was probably 15 years old or something.
There's something about it which is very laid back, not pretentious. There's no bullshit. And it never changed. It's always all about the music.
Playing at the Rex Club for me is very special because the big parties that Laurent was doing at our wake-up parties where we had Lil Louis for the first time, Derek and all the guys, were the parties where I really became a DJ.
Cyril was extremely young when we did Wake Up. Cyril must have been, 17, 18 or something like that. And this is the time where he actually stopped his studies, which was a huge trauma in his family. I remember that so well. We are part of the same history.
To me today, playing at the Rex Club is incredible because I could walk through the club packed and I don't know anyone in the club. It's only kids. When I started DJing there, I knew everybody on the dance floor, but there is still this special vibe.
You have to go down some stairs and then appears like the dance floor and then you can feel the bass.
Bringing together all these super elements, sound system, music, performance, the unique vibe that they succeeded maintaining in the years and still is one of the clubs where you live something when you go there. You spend just crazy nights in this club.
It's a bit like my house. I've been here since the beginning, so it's been now 4 years almost. Yeah, it's 4 years. I've seen this place really change with the time. I saw this place when it was still just a boat. And I know all the staff since the beginning and it's a real family place. I always come here to do my podcast because it's the only way for me to have this impression and to have this deep emotion that I have here.
So Rex Club is super important for Paris. Then there was Social Club that brought the whole UK and US scenes a bit more breaky. Recently, the most, influent club is Concrete.
Concrete brought something to Paris that didn't really exist. First of all, the fact that it's party that is in daylight and on Sundays.
The first party was amazing because in Paris, we didn't have that kind of party, that kind of long party.
The idea was not to copy Berlin or to copy London. The idea was to create something which was fitting with Paris actually, because Paris is really specific.
They created a kind of confidence. They practically said, okay, we are Parisian, we're making parties, it's possible. We could be a big clubbing city.
We wanted to build like an institution. We wanted to educate people with music. That was one of the main points. And the other point was to develop the local scene. For example, Francois X, for me, was one of the best techno DJ in France, so it was natural for me to ask him to come in the agency. But after I was looking for like more unknown artists, and my goal was to really develop them.
I think Concrete came at the right time, where Paris was really dying. I mean, the clubs at the time were supposed to be trendy or fashionable, were laughable. They were caring more about the glitter and the package than the content.
The club scene in Paris was really poor. There was nothing going on, and it was a bit sad to be a DJ as well. You didn't have a lot of gigs.
I started to book them at Concrete, at Weather Festival. Antigone, for example, or Francois X, they are playing every weekend, everywhere in the world. So now it's working really well for them.
They really gave the chance to new artists to like express themselves.
Before it was more about, okay, they're doing techno, they're doing house, I'm doing that. In Paris, Concrete is like that place where the music, the house and techno is bubbling.
What was really cool with Francois is that he's a bit older than me, and so he was like the second generation of this music. He really like opened my eyes into all kind of techno genre.
For me, when you're producing, it's not about one style. I try to travel through a lot of different atmospheres. That kind of like very digger style of playing music, like you dig deeper into the music, and sometimes you find like, what is this?
We try to be open-minded on everything. This is quite a small philosophy of Concrete.
So you can hear old school acid house, you can hear new techno music, it's very diversified.
I do techno, but I don't have any barriers. I love all kind of genres.
But I'm not entertaining, but I'm not entertaining. But I'm not entertaining, 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 but I'm not.
When I was younger and I went to clubs, the atmosphere of that era was like a bit more electric and naive in a way. Nowadays, when I'm producing, when I'm DJing, that spirit I have to still rely on, because you have to stick to the roots.
It's funny because you can see today like older DJ, like for instance Steve Bick now, that like came back. I don't like to say that, but came back from the dead because people started to get interested in the new scene. People start to search a bit more inside the electronic scene and say, hey, there was this artist like in 1997 that was doing great stuff, maybe. And this is like how everyone came back to it. It's a big ball where you have to put new ingredients all the time.
Record Store Day is getting bigger and bigger, and it's something every music passionate likes to do. It's on a Saturday afternoon, and they just walk around the city with their kids sometimes, and they go from one record store to another.
It's a cool opportunity to be with all the labels. Trax Magazine, they rent a venue. It's a good way to meet all our friends for the other label, and to meet the audience too.
It's not really an industry thing. It doesn't represent any money. It's just it's a community thing. There's people that are passionate.
In 2007, I just remembered all the record shops that were like closing in Paris, one by one, and There was only one place to go, and it was Synchrophone, and Synchrophone is still open.
Now you see new record shops opening, which is a sign that, there's so many new labels, the vinyl-only trend, and so it's good, I always love vinyl, and I'm glad there's a vinyl resurgence. Now, sometimes it's a little bit too, I would say vinyl fascist, if he's not playing vinyl, he's not a real DJ, which makes me laugh a little bit.
The new generation haven't really known, the act of going out buying records.
When I started, let's say to find a record, I would have to travel, go to London with the boat because there was no train, or take a car and go to Belgium or to Holland to find a record, Now, okay, YouTube, boom boom, Discogs, super easy.
We've spent like 10 years behind computers letting an algorithm decide what to listen to next. Record Store Day is about bringing the human aspect of things back into the way we consume music.
A lot is going on. It's basically a panorama of all the electronic music that lives through the city. People just come here to listen to great music, have a beer, chat. It's very simple. We live in a complex society, and that's simple pleasure, and it's super cool.
Ce qui est vraiment excitant, c'est que aujourd'hui, il n'y a pas une musique électronique. Il y a une incroyable diversité, une fabuleuse variété.
I think right now the scene in Paris is pretty healthy in the sense that there are very different parties, very different crowds. Some of them are purely techno, some others are a bit more open musically.
What I would like to see in 5 years is a lot of people coming from Germany, Spain, UK to our festivals and see the same effect that you see in festivals in Holland or even in Ibiza. Europe coming to France because we have the best scene in Europe.
Ce qui se passe à Paris et en France, parce qu'il n'y a pas que Paris, il y a la France, il y a d'autres villes où la musique électronique est vivante, mais il faut vraiment encourager encore plus. Encore plus.
Il y a eu l'essor parisien et maintenant en fait ça s'est répercuté sur toutes les villes de province en fait. Et au niveau musical, de mon point de vue, il y a encore du chemin à faire, mais c'est que le début je pense pour que la scène française au niveau de la musique se recrée, elle est en phase d'être recréée pour moi. Mais c'est pas encore le cas.
Personally, I don't want to know where the scene will be in the future. That's my dream, not to know, to be surprised, to be like, oh wow, we went from that to that, Put it this way, as a DJ, seeing walls and walls of repressing in the record store is very satisfying in the sense where, we were fighting for those records, they were hard to find, and I was thinking they would disappear. On the other hand, I'd love for something new to happen and for kids to make it their own. And even maybe not to like it anymore. I'd love for the scene to grab the music and bring it somewhere where I'm not thinking of. That's what I hope.
I feel that we didn't fight for nothing, because even if some of these young guys don't know us, which is normal, I understand what they're doing, because they're doing the same thing as we did. At least it feels like we didn't fight hard for something that died out. Something came out of this. Good.
Everything changed really, really fast here. So I just hope it just stabilizes, just like it is right now. It doesn't go bigger. Like it is now, it's just perfect. Yeah.